Has it ever happened to you or someone you know, someone who fits the description of an avoidant partner, leaves the relationship only to marry someone else soon after, and they genuinely seem happy?
You never wanted to be anybody's girlfriend, and now you're somebody's wife.
It surprised me too.
I don't think I'll ever understand that.
I just woke up one day and I knew.
Knew what?
What I was never sure of with you. I just kept thinking, Tom was right.
No.
Yeah, I did. I did. It just wasn't me that you were right about.
This scene is so tough to watch, and a part of you knows this is life. A part of you knows that with the time, he will see it differently. But right now, the emotions are so overwhelming. This is a scene that might be painful to watch and a topic that might be painful to discuss, especially if you've been through something like this recently. You gave your best, and now you're watching them move on fast. And what's worse, they seem happy. It's confusing, it's unfair, and makes you question everything. Right now, your mind is searching for answers. Was I not enough? Did they ever care? How could they be ready for someone else, but not for me? These questions are painful, and if it still feels too raw, you don't have to analyze it yet. But if you are at the point where you are ready to step back and look at it from another angle, let's explore one possible way to understand what happened. Point number one, avoidancy might not be exactly what you think it is. And to explain it, I'm going to first explain the difference between vulnerability and woundedness. When something doesn't fit into our expectations, or when we don't quite understand the nature of our emotion, or they become so overwhelming, this is where we can fall into woundedness. Vulnerability is when I face my limitations. I cannot force things to go my way. I cannot control other people, and that's okay. I am okay, and the other person is okay. I can adjust my desires to align with reality and discover a new path forward with trust that I will find what my authentic need is, and I will still see it come to my life. Woundedness is when, instead of recognizing my limitations, I fall into self-blame and start attacking myself. If things don't go the way I want, then something must be wrong with me. I'm not valuable. I am not wanted. This is the moment where we start looking at ourselves and others through good or bad, right or wrong. I am okay. The other person is not okay. Or the other person is okay, but I am not okay. We no longer see ourselves as whole people with certain experiences, with certain life trajectory. We no longer see other people as whole people with their own processes. We only see their reactions to us. Woundedness consists of shame and blame, and to reduce the pressure of it, the vision narrows down to the attempts to free yourself from feeling it. This is when we really want to find a quick and ideal answer, and preferably the one that will free us from guilt. This is when the temptation to start thinking and viewing the world through categories and generalizations is the strongest. This is the moment when the temptation to label another person as a certain type is high, because it provides that relief and explanation. I just picked someone wrong. But in reality, it is an attempt to skip crucial step, connecting with yourself, your own reactions, your own defense mechanisms and how you orient yourself in the situation, and probably how a certain image of yourself that you had is being changed. When we say avoidant attachment style, it is so broad, and I would invite you to think of it as a defense mechanism. Avoidance is not the absence of a need for relationship, but an adaptation to a certain fear. That fear will vary from person to person and will get triggered with some people and not get triggered with other people. It also can get triggered only in certain periods of life, but not in others. And also the attachment style can shift, for example, from anxious to avoidant, because avoidance is actually more radical defense mechanism as the ones used by anxious attachment style. Any human psyche is more complex than any idea, any category, or any label. What blocks access to closeness is not the attachment style itself. We cannot control how the other person handles their defense mechanisms, but we can understand our own and recognize our role in the dynamic. That shift from woundedness to vulnerability is crucial because closeness and authenticity in relationships directly depends on our ability to be open and emotionally vulnerable and available. Point number 2. If the defense mechanism of avoidance does get triggered, we often see it as a personal attack. Instead of recognizing that the other person is struggling with something and trying to solve it and might not be succeeding and might not ever succeed. If the defense mechanism of avoidance does get triggered, we often see it as a personal attack instead of recognizing that the other person is struggling with something and trying to solve it and might not be succeeding and might not ever succeed. And the motivation behind it is not to cause you pain, not devalue the connection that exists, but to cope with their own fears and pain. An egocentric point of view is when we interpret another person's choices through the lens of ourselves, believing that something about us is the reason behind their decisions. Avoidance can trigger certain defense mechanisms in us that we may not even realize, such as idealization, which I touched on in my previous video. When this defense mechanism is activated, it can sometimes be the very reason we get stuck on a particular relationship. Other defense mechanisms like denial, projection, splitting. Splitting is basically seeing someone as either all good or all bad, or even completely devaluing the person and the relationship, can also keep us attached, not to reality, but to the fantasy of what could have been, rather than allowing us to process our own emotions. To come to an agreement with another person in a relationship does not mean figuring out who is more important, more right, more mature, stronger, or better. It does not mean submitting or making the other person submit. It does not mean persuading, proving, convincing, or giving in. Coming to an agreement in a relationship does not mean accepting only one point of view, mine or yours. It means recognizing the significance of what is happening to each of us in relation to one another and acknowledging our impact on each other. And sometimes it is the hardest task to do, especially when certain defense mechanisms are triggered. But it does not mean that the connection or love was not present or that it did not have value. Point number 3. Sometimes we get stuck on the idea that if my relationship works, then I am special, that I am somehow better because someone chose me. And this leads to getting stuck in the pursuit of feeling special, which is really a compensatory need. It means that you'll never, if you chase it, it means you will never feel truly fulfilled and will always be afraid of losing it While the authentic need behind it is usually the desire to experience genuine connection. It is an endless search for someone who will give you a sense of importance, make you feel worthy of love, and grant you permission to be yourself. But when one person chooses another, it's not because someone is better or worse. It's a combination of how two psyches correspond with each other, what triggers get activated, and if there is a desire and a resource, an ability or capacity to deal with those triggers. Sometimes an avoidant partner ends up with someone else, not because that person is better, or because the connection wasn't there, or because they didn't love you, but because the avoidant response is triggered by the dynamic in the relationship. And I would like to finish this video with the adaptation of Gestalt therapy prayer by Jorge Bucay. And I don't know if the whole version will fit in the description, but I will try to post it there. But for now, here are some parts of it. If we find each other, it will be beautiful. And if after meeting we do not truly meet, then there is nothing to be done. Thank you. Thank you and goodbye. I am responsible for paying attention to what is happening within me and evaluating my role in everything that happens to me. And if you do not love me as I am, and if you leave me as I am, and if on the longest and coldest winter night you leave me alone and walk away, close the door. Do you hear? Because it's cold. Close the door. If that is your decision, close the door. I will not ask you to stay a single minute against your will. I ask you, close the door, because I live here, and outside it is cold, and that will be my decision. Perhaps someone will not want to stay. Well, then that is the price to pay. A price that means letting go of certain people from our close circle. And in doing so, we prepare for the arrival of new people.
Hey.
You again?
Yeah. I was just wondering if maybe after this, if you want to get some coffee or something.
I'm sorry, I'm sort of supposed to meet someone after this.
Okay.
Sure.
What's that?
Why not?
My name's Tom.
Nice to meet you. I'm Autumn.